to Modern Teachers' question about the digital learning environment that we did in late May in those modules. All of your coursework can go there, whether it's remote or physical. It can house everything that you need, and it will operate for us instead of Google Classroom, and it has all the features of Google Classroom and a whole lot more. Just to clarify, this is kind of funny, but it is Schoology. It's not Schoology. They're kind of touchy about that. But again, it's a good way to get your content to students and also grade for those that need it, and provide access to parents. The way that Schoology and PowerSchool work together is it's very well integrated. So that does mean that when you have access issues on your end, 99% of the time it's a PowerSchool problem. So it also does mean, though, that all the courses that are in PowerSchool are those that populate into Schoology, and those sync every single night. So as new students are added, if you don't see them in Schoology, it's because they just aren't in PowerSchool yet. And it works like a lot of our other systems do. Like I know iReady works similarly, where everything from PowerSchool pushes in, and we get that. That does mean that teachers will see the courses as they see them in PowerSchool, which means like me as a 5th grade teacher, I would see my ELA, my math, my science, my social studies, I would have that recess course, that learning lab course, the extra ones in their homeroom also. So we do ask that you put the content in the right subject for all grades, okay? Not just in one as we would have in Google Classroom. And I'll show you why that makes sense in a second. It's not more work, it's just a different place. The gradebook setup is really important for all instructors, and we've received a lot of questions about this, so I want to make sure that there's plenty of time to ask questions about this as well. Grades 3 through 5. You're used to getting grades in PowerSchool, and you will still complete the setup in PowerSchool as you have in the past. It is identical, and nothing will change in PowerSchool regarding grades. However, all grades must be entered in Schoology instead of PowerSchool. That means that once you set up PowerSchool, you don't have to worry about grading in PowerSchool, except to run reports for like progress reports and make sure your report card grades look correct. So you aren't doing double duty. We're just moving where you're doing it. You're going to do it in Schoology. That does mean that if you give an analog assignment, and we know that you should give analog assignments or paper assignments sometimes too, right? Those will need to be put into Schoology as well. Again, that's not really double duty because you would have gone to PowerSchool to make that assignment anyway. You're just going to do it in Schoology now. All other instructors, K2, you will still do your report cards in PowerSchool as you always have. And all instructors, K2 and everybody but grades 3 through 5, could optionally put grades in Schoology. Those grading scales we have, will help you set up, will be PMN scales or 3-2-1 scales. So that, again, you're not asked to do 1 through 100 grades. We certainly don't want parents to think that we're suddenly giving kindergartners 95 solo assignments. Again, not required, but we do think that that's a big benefit to Schoology or any LMS, that we can use that kind of method to provide some feedback. You will get access to the slideshow at the end of this presentation, and on it there are links to a video on how to set up K2, and really that's K2 and everybody, and then 3-5, because my 3-5 folks know that you're different. I was one of you too, so I know. And then there's a document that shows everybody, you should do it this way and you should do it that way. It sounds more complicated than it is because really there's 2 houses, there's 3 through 5 and everybody else. So I'm going to show you quickly how to set that up. Again, I've already shown the optional class how to do that, so I don't want you to think that I'm combing through it really fast, but the video is probably better than live because I could shoot it again when I made a mistake. So here we go. Let me jump in Schoology. You can do this several ways. Remember, you're going to gaston.schoology. Don't go to just Schoology. Go to gaston.schoology.com. You're going to notice that you have it up in your GCS bookmarks. You'll have a button for Schoology, and so will your kids. So if you're worried about directing kids to it, you'll notice that they'll have a little bar while they're logged in their Gaston account, and they'll be able to just click on Schoology there and log in. I'm going to go into my sandbox course. You're welcome to follow along if you want to. And I'm going to go to grade setup. So every teacher will need to do this in every one of their courses. Again, K2, I know that's new. But for you guys, it's more of like a thing of I set the defaults and then I don't have to sweat it ever again. And well, until next year. So what I'm going to do is set up categories, and categories means that every time I had an assignment, I need to tell it what kind of assignment it is. So for every class except for ELA and 3 through 5, 3 through 5 teachers, you'll know what I mean by this too. We're just going to call it assignments. It's just a straight flat average if we average the grades. K2 teachers and everyone else in here, that means you can set it as that one thing and just leave it alone. You'll hit add right here beside categories, and all you have to do is type in assignments and hit create. You don't even have to hit the 100 actually. I already have it sitting here, and you can click the star here to default it, and that way it won't ever ask you anymore. Okay. My 3 through 5 teachers in ELA, this is where you would set up the add, and you would do reading 70%, create, and then writing and word study 30% and create. So it's the same as you would do it in PowerSchool, and it needs to be the same so that the two can sync. Okay. Under here in a real course, it'll say the academic year 2020 to 2021. I'm in my sandbox, so this is like a fake grading period. For grades 3 through 5, you're going to leave this numeric, which means 1 to 100. And for everybody else, you're going to choose K2 rubric, which will give you that MPN scale. Okay, so I'm going to leave that numeric because I'm a 5th grade teacher. And then at the bottom, we are going to ask you to click these 2 buttons. Really, this only matters for 3 through 5, but everybody can click it. It's okay. Basically, what it's going to do is it's going to hide the overall average for the course from parents. And you might wonder why you would do that. Well, so for 3 through 5, that's linking back to PowerSchool. We don't want to show one average in Schoology and a different one in PowerSchool. Now, you might ask if they're syncing, why would they be different? That's because you have to sync, right? So there could be a time that I haven't synced in a day or 2 or a week. I should sync every week. It's just like hitting a save button, so it's not a process or anything. But let's say that I put in a bunch of grades at 5 o'clock and I'm done, and I didn't hit sync because it does take a second for it to process. I don't want a parent that night coming and finding one average in Schoology and a different one in PowerSchool. So we're just going to hide it in Schoology so parents and students can still see their grades for each assignment, but not see the average, because the county is going to be directing parents to PowerSchool to see the grade, the actual grade that is posted. Okay, I'm going to hit Save Changes. So again, for people that aren't used to this, that aren't 3 through 5 teachers, you're going to put assignments, you're going to put K2, check these boxes, and you're done. Okay. For my 3 through 5 teachers, you have one more step, and pardon the people that aren't 3 through 5 in here. This won't take but a moment. We just want to make sure because it's very important, and we only have so much time with you. So for my 3 through 5 teachers, let me go to a real course. You're going to tell it to sync to PowerSchool, right? Nobody else needs to do this. So you're going to go to the PowerSchool app that you're going to find in the bottom left corner. Okay. And this setup is done once per course as well. When you first come here, it's gonna have a separate screen that I can't replicate a second time because it only asks once. And it's one of those verification screens. It's gonna say, can I sync Kyle Wood's data in Schoology to Kyle Wood's data in PowerSchool? And you're gonna say, well, yeah, that's what I'm here for. So you're just gonna give it the authority to do that. That's totally okay. The first time you're in this course, you're also gonna click configuration up here. Sounds like it's gonna be complicated, but look how short it is. You're going to click on this first checkbox. All that does is make the title shorter. And then this is the important part, grades 3 through 5 teachers right here, and admins that are in here too. We have to tell it what categories in the Schoology gradebook we want to be synced with the categories in the PowerSchool gradebook. Since we set up our gradebook in PowerSchool already, hopefully, I don't mean today, but before we get to this step later, we will have already done that. We're going to come to Schoology, and we're going to say, okay, if I have a category of assignments, then when it syncs, I want that category to be assignments in PowerSchool too, right? I want them to match. So technically, the name didn't have to match, but sure does make things easier. This is going to be true for all your classes. And again, grades 3 through 5, you know your ELA is the oddball. So for your other 3 classes that are graded, you're just going to do that and hit save. For ELA, I'm going to leave this one blank. And I'm going to make sure that I have a reading category that matches reading. and a writing word study that matches it now. I don't see those here right now because I'm not in a reading class, so I shouldn't. If I do, then I set it up wrong. I hit save changes. I set that up one time. So now that each time I go into my grades and I enter in my grades for each assignment, I have a couple ways that I tell it to sync. One of those is to go to the top right and hit sync changes. So you're going to see this big long list of assignments and it's going to sync changes. The idea of syncing changes is super important because not only is it going to add in the new assignment you put in, but it's going to update anything you've put in, like the kid with the late grade that you added. It's going to add that into. So it's going to make them all match, right? I don't really like that sync button because I want to go to one place. So if I'm already in my grade book, which you'll see is right here. Now, all teachers can come back to me now. You could use this grade book. I'm gonna go into my sandbox so nobody sees all those kids. There we go. Everybody can use this grade book. You're gonna see it's super easy. I'm doing kind of a hybrid thing right here, but all I do is type in the grade and that's it. It's really nice. You can see it's auto saving down here at the bottom, but it's not auto syncing to PowerSchool. So if you're a person who's never done grades in PowerSchool, you can use this. Again, this is optional. If you're a K2 teacher, you're going to see a column that says 3 points, like I did for this assignment, and you're going to click here, and it'll show you your scale. It's really pretty nice. Okay, I can add comments. I can make those comments to myself, or make sure the kid sees them. I can also, with the little flag, mark that something is excused, incomplete, or missing. For those of you that do PowerSchool grades 2 through 5, if you mark it missing, and this is a huge change, listen up, if you mark it missing, it's going to sync as a 0. So no longer would that blank grade sync as nothing. If you have a nothing box, you need to mark it excused or incomplete so that it comes in as what Schoology calls null, comes in as just nothing. But every time I do my grades, or at least once a week when I do my grades, I need to sync. And this is my favorite spot for the sync button because I'm thinking I'm going to be in here putting in grades and then I'm going to hit sync. Schoology tells us to do this at least once a week. We don't want there to be different information in the two places if parents are looking in PowerSchool and might look in Schoology, and we want them to match. But we also don't want the sync to take so long. If you wait longer, the sync's going to take longer because it's syncing more stuff. Okay. It's smart to do this morning or night instead of, say, noon. You like everything else that's has a lot of users on it. It's just going to take a long time. Okay, so that is the quicker version of setting up your grade book. Again, we have documentation for that, but I'm going to stop now and make sure I get any questions. Again, if you're not in a classroom that normally does grades, you do need to set it up just so it doesn't pester you for defaults. That way you just set it up in first and leave it be. Or you can choose to use it. Okay. Just basic troubleshooting stuff. It's really the same as PowerSchool. So if you're a PowerSchool grader, then you know that usually the mistakes are just ours. We forget to do a category, or we forget to put a date or something of that nature. So if you just, I'll show you the boxes that you have to make sure that you've completed to avoid all that. I want to share that stuff as we're making content anyway. Okay. All right. So let's get to our real topic for the day with the balance of our 45 minutes. And it is adding in new content. All right. So this is what you came for, right? All right. So in Schoology, we have really kind of two ways to add content to courses. And it's sort of like Classroom, but with lots more options. So in Classroom, we have the ability to add an announcement or an assignment. And when we do it here, we have the ability to add different kinds of assignment and just information. Okay, so we have in our Add Materials button in our courses, we have all these options on your screen now. And the top two portions of that menu are you creating new content right then. And then the bottom portion is pulling in shared resources or your own resources from the past. Okay, we're going to focus today on new content because we haven't been in here yet. So we don't have a lot of resources in there yet, right? When we bring those items in, let's think about ways in which we can organize them. And this is just a suggestion, okay? So you can come up with ways that you would prefer it if you would like. What we're suggesting is that you make a folder, and you make a folder perhaps by the week, maybe by the unit, or maybe by that topic. Right now, I'm partial to week, I think. I know that our weeks are kind of staggered with the AD stuff, but I'm still sold on the week idea. But if you remember in the Getting Started course, the modules were organized by Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, and those are folders. So folders are the best way to gather things. I mean, they're folders, right? Inside those folders, we're going to start to shift our minds to the different kinds of items I would add. So in Classroom, we just stuck the assignment out there, right? We had to type in all the directions on that page and all that stuff, but it does get kind of unwieldy in Classroom because there's only one way to add it. And in Classroom, it just makes a big long stream. I remember talking to lots of y'all about that in the spring and before that even. How do I kind of like chunk this? Folders is our answer in Schoology, okay? So then let's think about the types of things we can put inside those folders. We're going to use this terminology. This is kind of from Modern Teachers Learning Pathway ideas. So the first is Learn It. So let's think about Learn It being our instruction. Okay, so on those things, we would suggest making pages, and I'll show you how. And those pages would have my mini lesson, or maybe my screencast, or maybe my video of myself teaching the mini lesson. I should have said that. Or video from YouTube or Khan Academy or Discovery, or some other source content, right? So it could be the article I want them to read, the PDF, things that are informational, okay? So it's the best way to get out information. Our second item would be something that we're gonna call Practice It. And that would be the interactive portion, whether it's like a kind of guided practice, kind of easy to build off the Learn It, or whether it's an independent practice that's more open-ended and allows for collaboration. And we could do all sorts of different interactive portions. So I'm going to show you that today in assignments and discussions. And then finally, we would do our evidence of learning, which is, okay, you've learned it, you've practiced it some, now do you know what you're talking about? So it's our assessment. And this is kind of a general lesson plan format anyway, right? But this might take the place over 3 days or more, depending. And nobody's saying you have to have one practice and one evidence. You can provide that chunked however you like. But in the evidence, you could provide more interactive portions. You could put a link to a Google form. Eventually, we'll get used to the assessment feature that's inside of Schoology, which can do all sorts of stuff. We're not going to go there just yet because it's big. Or you could just give them a product that they would have to do, whether analog or online, okay? Over here, and again, you'll get this presentation at the end, we made a little graphic that shows you kind of the rundown of just, I was kind of trying to think, how would I sit down and like plan a lesson that's a hair different online, but you're going to notice that it's really the same components you'd do face-to-face anyhow. And over here on the little Post-its, there are suggestions for different kinds of things you might want to think about, okay? So I'm not going to belabor that right now because you can check that out, okay? What I want to get to is getting you in there to make stuff, okay? We're going to do all that in our sandbox today. You're probably aware that your schedules at schools likely aren't done yet. Every school's at a different process, and as people are moving to virtual only or moving around, classes are being jumbled and all that. So, play in your sandbox now and continue making stuff in your sandbox. I can show you how to move stuff from sandboxes to courses too. So let's think about that giant menu again. Remember, it had, gosh, like 8 or 9 different options. Let's think about that as being divided into interactive stuff that the students can do, which is kind of like the stuff that I should have been putting in my Google Classroom in the spring, right? Stuff for the kids to do, to interact with. And then there's informational stuff where they're supposed to be provided content, okay? So our interactive options are assignments, which works a lot like Google Classroom. Discussions, which are your typical discussion boards we're going to show you. There's a media album option that just allows them to sort of like throw photos of things into the same spot. So we're going to do a little bit less of that right now. And then there's assessments, which is a gigantic module that isn't just used for assessments. It can do all kinds of interactive stuff. And we're going to be rolling out a module about that later on because we're going to receive training on that first and be able to do that. That's going to be our first training is on assessments. So the second kind of portion of that is, let's think about, some of them are informational. So it's making folders, which is a little different than making like a folder in Drive. It can do more than that. Uploading files, which I wouldn't do very often, and I'll explain why. And links, which I wouldn't do very often. And then pages. Okay, so why would I not want to upload a file that I have, and why would I not want to do a link? It's not that I don't want to link things. I'm going to link a lot of stuff. It's not that I don't want to upload files. I'm going to have lots of files. These are independent. So in my folder, there'd just be a link sitting there, no explanation. Doesn't make any sense to me. So what I would do is I would make a page, and I would put those links in a page so that that page will allow me to type in some context and tell them what that link is. Otherwise, it's just going to be a link with a name. I just don't think that that's a good idea. You certainly can, and I'll show you how. The rest of this section of the presentation is going to have places where you can try things. So I'm not going to stay on the slideshow. I'm going to actually go do this stuff. But I just want you to know that when you get the presentation, there's a link to how-tos. And I'm going to show you our webpage that has all that stuff as well. So there's how-to documents just dripping everywhere. So I want to show you kind of the ways to go to find that stuff. So if you can remember in the presentation, oh, he definitely went over that. Here's the how-to, but they're also linked to other places if you lose track of the presentation. Okay, so let me go into Schoology and let's give this a shot. All right, so first, let's say I'm setting up for week 1 of school. I'm going to delete some of the stuff. First, let's say I'm setting up for the first week of school, and I'm thinking about what my lessons are going to look like. Okay, we know first week of school lessons are quite different than they are 2 or 3 weeks in, especially this year. So in our 101, by the way, we shared ways to show kids how to navigate Schoology. So that's in the same presentation that you'll get at the end of today. You'll have access to that. It's a template, so it's got cute emojis and all that stuff on it, so you can make it your own. We debated how much of that we make for you, because right now we think it's super important that your face is on it. So we have the template, but we wanted you to put in your images, so everybody's not looking at this mug. All right, so let's get started. Up at the top of your sandbox course, you're going to hit add materials, and I'm going to start with my folder. Okay, so I'm going to build the structure that way. I'm going to start with my week, and then I'll fill it up. Okay, you can see this is pretty friendly. I'm just going to title it, so I'm going to call it week of the 17th to what, 21st. I'm adding the night number of days there. You can color code your folder. Now, you are going to be putting your subject material in that subject's course. So you won't have one Google Classroom. You're going to have a course for ELA, math, science, and social studies. I know that sounds like more work, but again, you're just adding in a different spot. And you're going to show kids that their work in the different subjects is separate. Okay. Here you can put in a description. So, you can type in whatever you want. For time, I'm just going to put this. Okay. And you can put pictures in here as well. I'm going to show you when we make pages all these buttons, because they're the same. And that's the good news. Every time I go to add stuff, the buttons are very, very similar. Folders has a few less because it's just a folder. For the date, I'm going to say that I'm going to put August 16th for this. Okay. I want it to be published right now, or I can schedule it just like you could classroom posts. So I can put here, publish on the start date. So I'm going to have it published that Sunday night, or Sunday, I guess, at midnight. Well, I guess Saturday at midnight when Sunday starts. I can also, because, 6 weeks into the year, I don't want there to be just folders upon folders for all my kids. So I can also add an end date and put that there if I want to. And here I could say publish during that range. So I can have it pop up the day before they need it and go away like maybe a couple weeks later in case there's makeup assignments and stuff. So it keeps my course clean for the kids. I still have my stuff. I don't lose anything. It just doesn't publish. It'll just like gray out. And I'll show you that in a second too. So I'm just going to hit create. Oops. Well, because I chose an end date, it's going to ask me to have one. Sorry about that. Okay, there it is. All right, so there's my folder. So you see it's not published, so it's kind of gray. The rest of my stuff is white. Okay. All right, so I started my week. Now I want to add in that learn. It's going to teach them something. Okay, so I can do this a couple of ways. I can go back to add materials and do that, or I can come down through here and I don't know if you can see this, it's kind of small on your screen, I bet, but every time you hover between things, you get like a green line, and that's where you're placing the stuff. So I can go green line, and I can hit add page. Okay. You can add anything, but I'm suggesting that since you're going to put content in there that you're using to teach with, it's a page, it's informational, right? So I'm going to add page. Notice that the box is pretty darn similar. And since this is my Learn It, I'm going to type Learn It. And maybe that's terminology I'll get my kids used to, go there to learn stuff. I was also thinking about a way to do this for A/B students. And I was thinking that instead of having two different things going on at once, I was thinking it might be nice to have, and then it'd be hard the first week, I know, but after that it should work okay. I could have the Learn It stuff could be all stuff that they could do at home, right? I mean, it's watching the videos, reading the articles. It's kind of like flipping your classroom. Whereas the Practice It stuff, maybe I want them to do it while they're with me so that I can help them. And I also have the analog stuff that I'm doing while they're in the classroom that I could help them with. That might be part of my Practice It. So I'm going to put Learn It, and I'm going to say my lesson is just write books because I know that's always an early one. And here I have a content editor that works kind of like Google Docs. I can just type in whatever I want. So I'm just going to say this is my lesson for today. And I'm not going to type in a lot of stuff because I don't want to write a book for the kids, right? So I want to be able to insert things. So the good news is, and this is what should make you happy, I hope, all your stuff that you've used in the past works. Everything I've tried anyway works. So all your Google stuff, your links to your Flipgrids that you liked, you can link out to Seesaw, all that stuff works just fine. Okay. So I'm going to show you, I'm not going to show you bold and all that. I'm going to show you how to add cool stuff. Okay. So I'm going to start with the link. This is just an ordinary hyperlink link, right? So if I wanted to link my students to a web page, I just go copy it, Control C, and I go back to Schoology, get over here, and I click link, which looks like a chain link, just like it does everywhere else. I paste it in, and then for the title, I'll type in whatever I want my kids to actually see. So I'm going to put Schoology link or whatever it might be. Hit insert. Okay, so I just get a hyperlink. So that could be right in the middle of my text. You know, click this link to do da 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 da. Now, I don't like that. That looks kind of boring, right? So let me show you some cooler ways to do that same thing. This guy is the first place where the magic happens right here, right? It's insert content. Inserting content means you're going to add content to this box. And I know that sounds kind of like obvious, but I'll show you why there's a different way to do it too. So I hit this, and I can do images. And I would just have to upload an image. So I'd have to go to Google Images and download it and then upload it back. Okay. So I'm not going to do that right this second. I want to show you the cooler one. Here is my Google Drive resource app. So this is such a major key right here. So we definitely worked really hard to make sure you could log in with Google and not through just PowerSchool or EdCloud or something like that. One, because it's easier for you. Two, because it's easier for kids. Three, because Google likes it better. And that means all your stuff comes along with it. And it's wonderful. And I love it. So I'm going to hit the Google Drive resource app. And check it out. It's just your Google Drive, which is loading very slowly for me right now. Let me try it one more time because it's been working super fast. So let's see. There we are. Okay, cool. So I want to, so this is my learning part. So I'm not putting something in there for a student assignment just yet. So I want to put in that sweet presentation I made about Just Write Books. And before you're like, dude, I don't have a presentation about Just Write Books, but you probably have an anchor chart, right? So couldn't it just be one slide in a Google slide? That'd be the easiest way to do that probably. You could take a picture too if you want. So I'm going to check that box, and up at the top, I'm going to hit import. I have three options. I'm only going to bother with two of them, and I'll show you why. First, I'm going to hit import link. I want to show you what happens super fast. All it does again is link to the file. Totally fine to do that. Again, it doesn't look super snazzy. So let me show you another way. I'm going to hit insert content again, hit Google Drive again. I'm going to hit the same file again. I just want to show you the differences because this is the one that actually looks cool. I'm going to do import. Instead of hitting link, I'm going to hit embed. Anytime we embed something, it means we aren't attaching it, but we're actually inserting it inside of this field. Okay, so you can see that there is the presentation. Now you might look at that and say, Kyle, that's a really horrible presentation. It's like some kind of like nasty looking yellow. But what's going to happen is when I hit create, it's going to actually pull it in. That means that we didn't attach that presentation, it's embedded. So that means that if I go into Drive that night and I edit that presentation, it gets edited on my page too, which is wonderful. Okay. So that's going to look really nice. And I'll show you in a second what it actually looks like. That's how you add content inside of the page.
We have some questions about offline and if students are at home without internet access and how much of Schoology will be able to access.
Right. So Schoology is a website, so you cannot download Schoology and work in it offline. So if students don't have internet access because it's a website, it will not work. It doesn't have an offline mode. Now, there are options in Google Drive that you can work on Google Drive offline, but only if you were to come and sit on Wi-Fi and download those objects, or I mean those assignments onto Wi-Fi. So there is not an option in Schoology to work offline.
And you cannot legally download YouTube videos either.
No, you can't just download YouTube videos. Yeah, Wi-Fi access will be necessary to use the online LMS. Thomas asked, will inserted content work offline? So if it's from Google Drive and the student has enabled offline mode and has been at school and has downloaded those exact documents, yes. Otherwise, no. It's an online LMS. I know there's been mixed information shared about that, but it's not true that Schoology can be downloaded. Nor can Canvas. So you might find if you're in Canvas or Schoology that you can download a course. What's going to happen is you're going to lose every interactive portion. It's going to be, I don't want to call it a PDF, but it's going to be just a HTML file. It's going to be a web page. So you're going to go to it and you're going to be able to look at it, but you're not going to be able to do anything offline. So down here at the bottom to the left, we have 5 icons that are 5 other ways to add content. So before you're like, man, 5 more ways? Okay, some of them we're not going to use very much. Okay, so the first one is the file upload thing that I already shared earlier. So all it's going to do is it's going to upload from your computer, so not from Drive. Drive was the way I just showed you. So most of your stuff's in Drive, right? So I'm just going to attach this PDF to show you what it looks like. So it looks kind of like an email attachment. Again, not a super enticing way to do that. I would probably embed it from Drive if I could. Now, if you're giving them a bunch of content and you're like, here's my presentation and here's some handouts that you need, okay, that makes sense. If I go to link, it's going to do exactly what link did before. So I'm just going to use the same link to show you. But look how it just makes a link at the bottom. Again, I would rather it be linked up here where I could type around it and give it some context and say, you know, this link's going to take you to X. Next, in a resource. This is where if you have things in your resources that are outside your course inside of Schoology, so like your Schoology filing cabinet as opposed to Drive, you could pull in things that you've used in the past. For the group button, this is where academic services has a group and your grade level could have a group, your school could, and you could share materials between each other. I'll show you that in groups in a second. And for apps, you're going to go to the Google Drive app, and it's really the same exact thing as we did earlier. So it's just going to insert it in the exact same way. Okay. Our microphone option is amazing. So when you click there, you're going to have audio only or audio and video recording. So that means that right inside of Schoology, without going somewhere else, you can video yourself. This is where you could teach your mini lesson, or you could read aloud. It doesn't do screen recording, so it just does a video webcam feature like this. We like this for asynchronous instruction a whole lot. It's really cool that it's embedded, and I just hit start and stop. And other than the unfortunate freeze frames, you just hit insert recording, and it's an attachment. It doesn't look nice, but it's a really great feature, and students also have that feature so that little kids can respond with voice or video instead of having to type in every single thing. And I'm going to come back to this external tool in a moment. Okay, so I can add content in all those different ways to my pages. At the bottom here, I have some options. The main option that we want to check out is this publish to students. It currently says it is published, but when I place this inside that folder that, remember, I had published later, everything in that folder will publish when I publish the folder. Okay, so I hit create. And there it is. Now I can take this, and it's not in the folder yet, so I can take it and I can drag it. I'll admit this is kind of frustrating. You see I'm having trouble hitting the folder. If you can't get it in there, you can go to the gear on the right-hand side, and you can reorganize things. There's a move button down here, and you can move it and tell it which folder that you want, kind of like Google Drive. And there it is. So now it's inside of that folder. Now I promised I would go back to the page to show you that the presentation did embed. So there it is. So that's why downloading isn't possible. It won't download this presentation too. Okay. So there's that. So I'm going to stop now and see if anybody has any questions about pages. You know what? I need to look up time limit, Kim. I haven't seen that yet.
Can you use the mic to answer questions for students? Can students use the mic to answer questions?
Yeah, it's really cool. You can use it in the discussion board. You can, and to make comments too, I believe. Discussion board's the main place. I want to make sure I didn't read all of Thomas's questions. Oh no, yeah, no, I guess I didn't answer that. Yeah, it wouldn't work. Tom, sorry. Alrighty, so let me go back to Sandbox. Alrighty, so my next thing is I've done my learn it. Now I want my kids to do something. Okay, so I'm going to go to my folder again, and now I have little green icons now, and I can go ahead and stick it right in the folder really well. So I can click there, and I'm going to show you assignments. So this is probably what you've been most anxious about, because this is where it matches Classroom the most. You're going to notice that all this up here is the same as you've seen in the past. This time, though, I'm going to call it Practice It. And I'm going to put just write assignment, I guess. Whatever you want to put. Okay. Now, just like you could in your page, you can edit all these the same way. So I'm not going to do all of it again, but I will show you something. I'm going to put some text in here. This is your assignment on blah, 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 blah. Okay. Basic directions. You can paste that in from a Google Doc, by the way. So you already have that in Google Doc. You just copy paste. And it looks really pretty, actually. So now I don't want to embed a Google slideshow again, because this is going to be something that I want the kids to do. Okay. So I have a bunch of options. So number one questions that we're hearing is, but what if it's not Google? Okay, Google works super well, but what if I use something else? So I'm going to use Flipgrid as an example, okay? Just because I like Flipgrid a lot. So I'm just going to go to my Flipgrid account. Again, if you aren't familiar with Flipgrid, this is just an example. It's one of the tools that I would highly recommend getting used to. So it logs in with Google, so there I already am. And I'm going to go into my Flipgrid with my topic. So just so you know, if you are a Flipgrid user, their buttons changed yesterday. They just took the pictures off. The buttons seem to be the same, but the funky little rockets and spaceships and stuff are gone, which I don't know why. So let's say I made this post about just write books, not gravity, and I hit share. I get this link, right? So in the past, you would have just stuck this link in your Google Classroom. They would have clicked there, gone to Flipgrid, and done their thing. The same thing happens here, but there's a bonus step too. So I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to go to my assignment, and I can just paste it in. I can go link, paste it in, and do Flipgrid assignment. Insert. Okay. So there's Flipgrid assignment. Okay. Again, that's not super pretty, so let me show you a funky way to do this. Now, this is where it's going to look techier, guys. And so before those of you who know me know I think I'm nerding out or something, I just want to clarify, I know nothing about coding, like nothing, okay? So that is not what I'm doing right now. So don't sweat it, okay? So I'm gonna go to Flipgrid, and I'm gonna hit share again. And do you see this guy? Anytime you see these little greater than, less than symbols, that means code. And again, I'm not writing code. I cannot write code. But I like that word embed, because remember, embed is what made it move from being a link in words to being on my page and looking a lot nicer and much more friendlier to my students and me. So I'm going to click copy the embed code. It looks like nothing happens because it just copies it all for you. I go back to Schoology. And at the end of the assignment menu, you have two little dots. So when I click that dot, it starts showing me code. Now, before you're like, whoa, code, I don't know what it means either. So watch what happens. I'm going to paste in the code. That's what I copied when I hit that button on Flipgrid. This isn't unique to Flipgrid. Anytime you see the little, some people call them carrots, but they're greater than, less than emblems, you can get those, you can get that code from many sites. Seesaw doesn't have embed, but it does have a direct link. So if you make an assignment in Seesaw, you'll see a button for a direct link that can do that. And when I flip the dots again, or click them again and switch it, you'll see that yellow box. Now remember, that yellow box looks ugly, but remember what it did when we did the presentation, right? That's just a placeholder, and when I hit create, it's gonna pop it in, okay? So this is if I want them to do an assignment that isn't in Schoology, that's somewhere else. Again, that's something else they wouldn't be able to download, obviously. So that's gonna be out when they click on it, it's going to go out to it. Now, when we're using Flipgrid, they're going to log in with Google, so they're just going to hit that button, jump into Flipgrid without having to type in a login or anything, because Flipgrid only uses Google. If you do something like a discovery assignment, it's going to make them log into their EdCloud, but it will link. It'll link like this though. And if you do anything else that uses EdCloud, it's just got to be a link, and they are going to be triggered to log in to EdCloud. So they'll still need that login for several things. I can still come down in here and add in any of this content, and I can add stuff from Google as well. Okay. Now, let's say that I do want to add a Google attachment instead. So let's say this isn't Flipgrid, so just a separate assignment, let's say. And I wanted to do a Google attachment, and I wanted it to have the classroom feature where it copies out a separate copy to every student. That is right here, called Google Drive Assignments. Basically, when you click on that, it's going to open up the box. It looks like the other Google app that's in here. And I'm going to say I want to use this, say, Frayer model template. So this would work for if I'm sending them a copy of a Google slideshow that I want them to edit, or a Google drawing, or a Google Doc. You'll see that forms are grayed out because I wouldn't want to copy my test form to the kids. You wouldn't copy it, right? You would send it to them to fill out, but not copies of it. But you can see all the other stuff is lit up. There's docs, spreadsheets, and so on. So I hit attach. And right there it says this will copy a file for each of your students. Now, if you're sending something out that you don't want your students to have a copy of, then you would just stick it in here like you did in the learning portion. Okay. So for most of us, that would be it. Well, no, there's one more button, sorry. I would need to put a due date for that assignment. There's a bunch of benefits to this. For grades 3 through 5 teachers, it has to have a due date so that your gradebook works correctly. For all other teachers, this is what's going to, it's still going to have a column in your gradebook if you choose for it to be graded. And it's also going to show on the student's calendar when it's to come up. That's a great way to organize the different subjects for the kids. And it's going to show up on their first screen when it has upcoming items. So this is super important. You'll notice that the category is assignments. For those of you who don't normally do grading, that's why we set up our gradebook. That's one box we don't have to worry about again. This is already going to say the 2020-2021 school year for you. For factor, we're going to leave that 1 always for everybody. That does mean that we can no longer double a test grade. That's not possible anymore. All grades other than ELA are flat averages. For sync to sys, that will only matter for grades 3 through 5 as well. It's basically saying, do you want this particular assignment to sync to PowerSchool? So everybody else can just uncheck that. For the rubric, then if you're 3 through 5, you're going to choose numeric. If you're K2, you're going to choose K2. If you're anyone else, you're going to choose K2. And you'll notice that the difference is when I choose numeric, I need to put up here that I mean 100 points. Okay. Down here at the bottom, I have a couple of things of different kind of modifications I can do. I can individually assign this to students. So when I hit the little 3 dots, I can type in the students' names that I want to assign it to. I can publish this, but it knows it's in a hidden folder, so it's not published yet. And I'm going to hit create. So you're going to see that it's inside my little folder over here. And when I click on it, I want to show you what the Flipgrid looks like. Right there it is. They're just going to hit join with Google. Man, they don't have to go to Flipgrid. They don't do anything. Just hit join with Google and they're in Flipgrid. And because I did a Google assignment, there it is. So that when they click on that, it's going to make a copy for them. It's going to put it in your Google Drive, just like it did with Classroom. What's really, really cool is if you, this screen looks different because I did a Google assignment. So when I go to in progress, I can see which of my kids have started their assignment, and I can see under submissions which ones have turned it in. Okay. If I'm in the in progress, I can even see my students actually working on that document. Not like Dino where you see their whole computer. You just see the mouse moving around and then typing on that document. Okay, so that's assignments. I'm going to pause again and make sure I answer any questions. We got about 12 minutes left. Yeah, parent stuff will go out to the GCS, the main GCS site. Student view looks almost identical, which is great. There is a way to see student view. Once you have students in classes, you can come to course options and view course as, and you can see it from the perspective of any of your kids. You see mine's like the same thing. Where this would be a little different is you would see what is assigned to that student if you chose to assign different things to different students. There we go. Okay. All right. So then I would go in and put my evidence of learning too, which would be just like in another assignment or a link or something of that nature. Okay. So next I want to show you discussion posts because that's different from Classroom. So I can do that from any of my little green lines, or I can hit add materials to do it, whichever one I want. I'm just going to stick it at the bottom of my course. And I can do add discussion. I'm not going to show assessment today. That's a huge portion that we will be doing a module about. You're welcome to use it or to continue using Google Forms or whatever else you wanted to use for assessment. I'm going to hit add discussion. Now discussions are all interactive, but they can be graded or not. Oh, I'm going to go back before I do that. I want to show you something. So for grades K2 and people that would rather not do grades, I needed to show you something and I skipped it. I'm so sorry. Let me go back to this page. All right, so let's say you're K2 and you don't want any of this stuff to be in my grade book. You're like, dude, I'm just trying to get the assignment out. There's an option for category to choose ungraded. So it won't even be in the grade book. Okay. Sorry, I should have shown you that. I'm sorry. All right, so anyway, back to discussion. All right. So in discussion, you see the box is the exact same. So you can still embed stuff. You could still put your video of your read aloud. You could still put in your slideshow. You could still put in a YouTube video for them to comment about, whatever it might be. This could even be your learning portion of that week if you wanted to. You could have it be a learning portion and then they have a conversation about questions that you put afterwards. So I'm going to title this read aloud, interactive read aloud. Okay, so let's say I put in my video of my read aloud or put in questions that I want them to answer. So pictures, whatever I like. Okay. Down here, I can select a due date. If this was a discussion board where I just want kids to be able to come in and ask me questions without messaging me, I just want like open questions, then I could just put like at the end of the school year or something. But since this is about my read aloud, gosh, I'm going to be reading that same book for a couple of weeks, so like the 28th. That's it. Now, if I wanted to grade it, I can hit enable grading, and I get those same features where I can say what kind of grade it is and what kind of scale I want to use and all that. Okay. You don't have to grade discussions. They can just be for conversation. That would be a really great way to build community and have some asynchronous instruction without doing so many Google Meets. Okay. At the bottom, you can still assign this to only certain people. You can still decide when it's published. But what I really want to show you is this guy with the graduation cap. I know on your screen is probably tiny, but if I click this guy with the graduation cap and I light him up, what's going to happen is it says it will require members to post before revealing other people's responses. I love that if I'm going to grade it, because if I ask a question, it means I can't see that anybody said anything until I give my 2 cents. So I can't just copy the first 2 people that responded. So that's really, really great. I hit create, and you see it just sits there right there. So when I click on it as a student or a teacher, I get this and check out what happens. When I click to add a comment, I can type in a comment. But look what I have. The ability to attach files. If you gave them a discussion board and said, what are 3 ways to make factors of 24, and you have them draw it and take a picture of it and upload it, they could do that. They could take a picture with their onboard camera and just attach it. They could hit their mic and say, I did it these ways, instead of having to type it all in there. There's lots of options that are integrated, which are awesome. And it's very, very, very fast. So there you see. So it's just it just looks kind of like a Facebook feed. Okay. The last thing I want to show you, because I'm running really short on time, is how to move this content around. So right now, this is in my sandbox course, and I might want to later copy this to my real courses, or I want to copy it and save it for next year. Okay. So here's my folder. I go to my course, my gears on the right, and I can hit copy to other courses right there. And it will go to all my courses, and I can say, okay, I want to go here, and I want to go to that folder. Okay, I can do that. I can also hit save to resources and be like, man, that is gold. That worked out so well now that I've taught it. I need to make some changes, but I'm going to save it for next year. I can hit save to resources, and it saves a copy of this to whatever folders I have here. Okay, I have set up a folder called PLA stuff. But notice that if you belong to any groups, like if your grade level or school makes a group, right here it will be, and I can chuck it in that group. I'm going to put this in my test group, and I can hit save a copy. So my students can keep using it. I'm just like, man, this is really great. I want to save it for later. It goes there. Okay. To access anything that's not in a course, I can go to those resources at the top, and you see this is kind of my filing cabinet. So I have my personal stuff. There's my ELA stuff that I've saved. You'll see I have access to public stuff, which is worldwide in Schoology to pull into my courses. I have access to any groups that I belong to. So when I go to my test group I set up for today, there it sits. And other people will be able to find it there too. And then I have access to my apps, which is just another space to find in Google Drive. Man, that Google Drive apps everywhere. If I wanted to take anything in any place in my resources and put it into a course later, so like next year, I could say, oh, there's my week 1 stuff. Awesome. Go to my gear and hit copy to courses, or hit add to course. And there it is again. Okay. So I could stick it in my next year course. Love, 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 love that. You still be able to edit it, of course. And then otherwise, if somebody else on my team wants it and we didn't make a group, then I can hit share at the top and search. It's best to search. You have to choose what school you're in. I do. I think yours is going to have the one school. And then I'm going to search to share it to Miss Salon. And there she is. And I can add her to that too. Okay. So I know I did resources quickly. That's another module we're going to be putting up. Has to do with how to use that really well. And I'm really low on time, so I'm going to stop now for questions again.
How to access groups. Also, there's one about choice boards and having a microphone.
They do have to have a microphone. If they're using a school Chromebook, which will be sent home with them, then they'll have one.
If you embed a choice board and ask this is how their neighbor will never have a microphone.
Oh, no. Well, no, they won't have a microphone inside the choice board. The microphone will be only inside of Schoology. Like if they are doing like a discussion board like we were in Schoology, would be the best way. How to access groups, yeah. So this is resources. So if I'm in a group already, then it'll be here under my resources. But there's also groups up here, and you would go to, well, if you're in a group, it'll be here. But if you go to my groups, you can create one or join one that's been created for you. Okay. So those haven't been created. That would be up to like your grade level. Maybe your grade level chair makes it, or maybe your content teacher makes it. Those are all customizable and can be made however we want to. Yep. You can now get the link to the presentation right there where Abby has pasted it in. And the link for sign in is below it. Okay. Keep in mind that in that presentation, if you didn't come to 101, if you scroll up, you'll find 101 stuff, and there's a template there for you to do to modify to make your version of a guide for how kids can get around it. And it's super cute, emoji kind of stuff. It looks awesome. So that's there. That'll help your kids out. I do recommend day one, obviously, you're going to show them how to navigate Schoology so that when they are remote, they know how to get to their things. I do want to show you also where, thanks Tabitha, I do want to show you how to get to our support documents outside of this particular presentation. And what you would do is you would go to this link. It is bit.ly/Gaston Digital. You should bookmark that bad boy because you can go to resources and Schoology and you'll see everything we know about Schoology. Here's access to your online course. If you have not completed or started on the self-paced online course yet, that will be a huge help. It's what all the ITFs did to learn Schoology. So I really recommend you go there. Below there, you have tables for your sessions, but obviously you're here already, so you don't need that. Down here, you'll have a learning pathway. So if you do have specific questions about specific items, we went through and thought of all the things that as a teacher we would want. And you'll have how-tos from Schoology, and in the case of Gradebook setup, there's videos on how to do that. But there's also clue-ins to all the stuff that we'll be adding along the way. I'm sure this will change quite a lot over time, but it's there if you need it. And then at the bottom, we have an FAQ document. All the questions that we have that we hear more than a couple times go here. It's updated all the time, and the answers are down at the bottom. We do want you to understand that you are going to be very well supported. This is coming from the integration of a bunch of different departments across the district, and here you go. And so if you do have continued login issues, those are typically through PowerSchool. So those would go through your data manager to the accountability department. Rostering, scheduling, and all that stuff still happens in PowerSchool and syncs back to Schoology. The instructional expectations, access to unit plans and resources in that way still come through your academic facilitators and your CTs, content teachers. And then of course we're here, Abby and I, to support all the Google stuff, adding content into Schoology, setting up your gradebook inside of Schoology so that for those of you who need it, it syncs well to PowerSchool. That's it for now. Oh, that's bothering me, y'all. That's it for now, but if you have any questions, we're going to be here for a little bit longer. Our time's up, but we're going to be here a little bit longer to hang out and help you with any of those. And please make sure that you sign in. We'll be sending principals a list of everybody who's already attended. And that's all I can think of for now. But if you want to attend